Now, the Regulated Industries Commission has continued its consultations for a proposed rate increase for electricity, and as a result, the independence of the commission has been called into question. This morning, we're talking to Minister of Public Utilities, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, about some of the discourse that's taking place in the public domain. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, Rockers. Good morning to you. Beautiful team here at TTT.
Now, Minister, I always want more time with you because we have so much to discuss.
A lot to discuss.
But I want us to start off.
That's why I came yesterday. But I was still in the way.
Well, the public didn't need to know that, but I guess that too is now in the public domain. But Minister, I want to start off with RIC, and I want us to start there because, of course, consultations are ongoing as it relates to the proposed TNTEC rate increase, and the independence of the body has been called into question. Now, before we get to that, tell us about the act that actually governs the commission.
So according to the Regulated Industries Commission Act is the act that incorporates the RIC as an independent body with the sole purpose of reviewing the rates for water and electricity in Trinidad and Tobago. The Regulated Industries Commission is also mandated, among other things, to review the performance of the utility companies, WASA, TNTEC, pass certain standards so that they can meet on a regular basis and report on their performance to the Ministry of Public Utilities and, by extension, the Government of Trinidad and Tobago. So I will receive regular reports on a monthly basis as to whether or not TNTEC and WASA are complying with their standards as approved by the Regulated Industries Commission. And according to the Act, the Commission is also responsible for conducting a review for the rates of water and electricity in Trinidad and Tobago as well. But unfortunately, the last time we had a rate review was even before the RIC Act, which was passed in 1998. The last time we had a rate review for water in Trinidad and Tobago was in 1993. So the RIC has never done a rate review for WASA, despite the fact that the Act mandates that it has a responsibility to do so every 5 years. The last time we had a rate review for electricity was 2007. It came into effect, and I think it was 2009. But since then, there has not been a rate review. But fortunately, recently, or 2 years ago, the Commission passed its business plan, because part of the review process is that the utility company has a responsibility to prepare its business plan to submit to the RIC, justifying a review for the rates for water and electricity. It doesn't happen like that. They must justify whether or not there is a need for the increase. The RIC can agree or disagree. They will look at the financial performance of the utility company. They will ensure that the rate being proposed are fair, that they're reasonable. It will allow the utility company to recover the relevant revenue so that they can undertake the necessary rehabilitation on their infrastructure so that they can provide a reliable service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So all of that, very, very important. But you have to look at the financial performance, because if the utility companies are not performing well financially, it impacts upon their performance and their responsibility to provide the people of Trinidad and Tobago with a reliable service in water and electricity.
Now, Minister, let's go back a bit. You mentioned at the top that they're an independent body.
Mm-hmm.
If they're an independent body, then who are they getting paid from? Is it that TNTEC is in charge of giving them that money for their expenses?
According to the Act, the utility companies must pay a cess. It's similar to a tax.
Right.
The body will pass on a yearly basis its budget for its planned revenues and expenditure for the preceding year. That budget is approved by the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago and laid in the Parliament. Once the budget is approved and laid in Parliament, the Commission, according to the Act, it gets its revenue from the gross revenues of TNTEC on a proportional basis, right, in a formula that is identified under the Act. So from TNTEC, WASA, and PowerGen, they all contribute to the revenues, and that revenue is now used to run the operation of the Regulated Industries Commission.
Now, when you say a proportional amount, is it that based on the revenue from TNTEC, they get paid according to that?
Absolutely.
Does it change?
It changes. It changes. So TNTEC has been contributing the most because it has been the utility company that is generating the most amount of revenue compared to WASA and the other utility companies. If, however, there is a change in fortune for WASA, where there's an increase in revenue, what you can see is that WASA is taking up the greater shoulder of the responsibility to contribute the cess towards the Regulated Industries Commission. So I understand in recent times, I think recently or over the weekend, one of the opposition MPs is saying that once there is an increase in electricity rates in Trinidad and Tobago, automatically there will be an increase in revenue. That is absolutely not true. It is misleading the country. It simply means that if there is an increase in revenue from TNTech will contribute a greater portion of the budget that was approved by the RIC and laid in Parliament. If, on the other hand, there's improved revenue or improved financial performance on WASA, then WASA will pay towards that cess, towards that finance, the revenues of the Regulated Industries Commission on a proportional basis, thereby resulting in TNTech paying or contributing less towards the commission.
Minister, based on what you said, because TNTech seems to be the larger amount that's actually contributing to the RIC, the independence of the commission will be called into question, because if it is I'm getting more tax from you or more cess from you, then I may be, encouraged to do your bidding. And I wanted to know, how do we kind of challenge that in terms of the independence of the Regulated Industries Commission, because people are also saying that TNTech is being told, listen, the rate increases are coming, so you all also need to get on board with what's happening. So how do you challenge the independence or confirm the independence of the commission, knowing that the larger percentage of the cess comes from TNTech?
No, that is what the law provides for in Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the contribution of cess by the utility companies is very consistent with every other Regulated Industries Commission in the region and internationally. That is how the law is designed. It is not based on whether or not the companies operate at a profit, but based on the work that is expected to be done by the commission, this independent commission, to review the operations of these utility companies. The law mandates, well, you contribute to the work of the commission, the independent work of the commission. But the commission, or rather the utility companies, do not dictate the work, because I can tell you that based on what TNTech asked for in their business plan, a significant part of their business plan was not agreed upon or approved by the RIC. So the RIC, from all indications, is operating independently. They would have pointed to certain deficiencies in the operations of TNTech with respect to what they can do to lower their expenditure, to increase their financial performance and what have you, and reduce the amount of the proposed rates that TNTech had originally anticipated. I can also tell you that based on from preliminary draft determinations that was done by the public servants in the RIC, the board also would have stepped in to reduce what was originally proposed. So the work is actually taking place. The checks and balances are also taking place, and that is how it is expected to operate. The government does not have any role to play. The government expects the RIC to do its work as mandated by by its governing legislation, and we await the outcome of the consultation. But to go out on a limb, as what is being done by the opposition, to accuse the RIC of not operating independently, to accuse the RIC of being an extension of the limb of the executive or an extension of the executive arm of the state is just irresponsible behavior.
Minister, I want to switch to water, but before we get there, a lot of people are also calling into question the power purchase agreements by TNTech. Some are saying that they would have probably negotiated bad contracts, and so they are at the risk of doing things that are not supposed to be done. Let's call it that. And so I wanted you to talk about the power purchase agreements, because it seems as if maybe TNTech negotiated badly, and so now the customers have to pay for that wrong negotiation.
I don't agree with that, and all of these things were taken into consideration by the RIC in its draft determination.
Yeah.
All of these commercial arrangements. I don't propose to speak much about these commercial arrangements. Obviously, I was not there, but what I can tell you is that when those arrangements were negotiated, it was expected that certain industries would come into operation in TNTech, in Trinidad and Tobago, and TNTech was repositioning itself to be able to be the main provider of electricity to some of those industries. But what happened? A number of these industries had to be turned away because saboteurs in Trinidad and Tobago worked against, for example, the smelter plant. You would recall. When that commercial arrangement was negotiated, it was expected that we're going to have a smelter plant. It would require certain volumes of electricity, and TNTech was basically positioning itself to be able to provide some of these industries, the steel plants, etc., with electricity. So planning ahead based on what is coming, based on the demands that are coming, is good business. But a number of people in Trinidad and Tobago who have access to the media, they stage all kinds of protests, they undermine what was taking place, the negotiations and what have you, and a lot of these companies never, came on shores to establish their businesses to the detriment of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So to now come and say that these contracts were badly negotiated and there is now an excess capacity on the grid and what have you, I think it is just playing smart with foolishness, because some of these people, they knew very well what they did to undermine the work of the government of the day to ensure that we expand our industries, and that TNTech was basically positioning itself to be able to be the main provider of electricity to some of these companies.
Now let's switch gears, Minister, to WASA. Now I know that we have the water loss conference that's starting today, but before we get there,
yes,
can you provide us with an update on the employment? How is employment going with the new positions that roll out at WASA?
Well, so over the period November last year and January this year, all of the executive positions have been advertised, and so when it was closed in the middle of January, the utility company received over 1,200 applications locally, regionally, and internationally. So the shortlisting process obviously would have been a very long one. They have to go through every application in detail. My understanding is that they have done quite a lot of work, did a number of interviews, meeting with some of the applicants, etc. And I expect that by the end of April, that's next month, WASA should have a new executive leadership.
Nice. So nobody has been hired as yet. They're
Not
still
as yet,
in the shortlisting process.
They're shortlisting, and they're doing the final stages of the interviews.
Minister, I have to ask, the roads that WASA keeps digging up, I mean, we saw what happened with the Western Main Road. They paved it, it was good, and then a few days after, we saw a WASA truck and they started to dig. What's the reason for that? If it is we now put down the pitch and we pave the road and that sort of thing?
That is something that we will always have to deal with, because most of our infrastructure is under our road surface. We do not have utility corridors. And of course, to undertake the work of constructing utility corridors all over Trinidad and Tobago, you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar venture.
Minister, is there no conversation that could happen with Works where we could?
We will always have the problem, because when the Ministry of Works and Transport, they come, a lot of these lines are surface lines. They are domestic connections. In the case of St. James, for example, when the Ministry of Works would have repaved that road, it disrupted a line to a customer on that road and on the Western Main Road, and the customer was not receiving water. So what are we to do? What is the utility company to do when that happens? Oftentimes, the Ministry of Works and Transport will utilize heavy equipment that, in the process of milling and what have you, will disrupt some of these lines that are under the road surface. And that's the reason why, after surfacing, you would see leaks propping up in certain areas.
Right.
Is the utility company to ignore the leaks because the road was properly paved? And if they ignore the leaks, then the same public will come out and cry and say that there is a leak and WASA is not dealing with it. What the utility company must do is to go repair the leaks and ensure that the roads are restored based on a quality standard, quality engineering standard. That is what we're supposed to be doing, and doing so in a reasonable and a timely manner. So in the case of the St. James leak, I saw people putting on social media, oh, the ministry just
They were very upset,
and
yes.
But of course, and they have every reason to be upset.
Yeah.
But put yourself in WASA's shoes. If your customer's line has been disrupted as a result of the work that took place and a leak erupted after, what is WASA supposed to do? I'm asking a question to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. What is the utility company supposed to do? Allow the customer to remain without water? Allow the leak to flow on the road and have thousands of gallons of water being wasted? Or is the utility company to go, repair the leak, and restore the road up to the standard it has been left before? And that is the focus. And in one day, after the road was repaired, And after the leak was repaired, what happened? The road was properly restored, but nobody said anything about the quality of the restoration.
Minister, I think one of the questions as well is why are there always leaks? But we're going to pause that for now because I know you're always here like you were yesterday. But I want you to talk quickly before we go water loss conference.
So we're having a major regional conference at the Trinidad Hilton commencing from today until Thursday. It is the first water loss conference to be held in the region. Most of these conferences are held all over the world. As we speak today, the United Nations in New York is also holding a water conference, similar to what we're hosting in Trinidad and Tobago. But despite the fact that we had competing agendas with the United Nations, over 200 delegates from around the world registered to attend the water loss conference in Trinidad and Tobago with 3 or 4 ministers in the region from Bahamas, from Nevis, Barbados, I think Guyana. They will also be attending the Trinidad and Tobago Water Loss Conference. It's the first of its kind, and the issue of water loss is an issue being faced by all utility companies all around the world. And what is happening here is that a lot of experts, practitioners all around the world coming to Trinidad and Tobago to share ideas, to share technologies, to share advancement as to how you treat with the very serious issue of water loss. Because I can tell you, it is estimated that over 40% of the water that is produced by WASA is lost as a result not only of leaks, but water theft, illegal abstractions from big consumers, state entities, and what have you, thereby resulting in over 100 million gallons of water being unaccounted for, costing the utility company hundreds of millions of dollars that it can collect from revenue. It is an issue faced by all utility companies, and at this conference, we will be pursuing ideas, we will be pursuing technologies and strategies to reduce the incidence of water loss in Trinidad and Tobago as we seek to move the transformation agenda in Trinidad and Tobago with the Water Authority.
Minister, is it too late to register for the conference? Because I know it's starting today.
It is oversubscribed. We originally anticipated 100 delegates, and it has ballooned to over 260 delegates from all over the region and all over the world. It is not, unfortunately, it is not open to the public, but we expect to have a live broadcast on the opening event tomorrow at the Trinidad Hilton. I am very excited about it because it is the first of its kind in the entire region, and Trinidad and Tobago has positioned itself to be the host country for this very, very important conference, so that we can meet as practitioners, as citizens, to look at the issue of water and ensuring then that as we move the development agenda forward, that the issue of water sustainability and water security is at the center of our development plans for Trinidad and Tobago.
And we're going to pause right there, Minister. Let me thank you so much for coming in this morning. Of course, thank you for clearing up, of course, the RIC matter, and we look forward to see what's happening with the employment at WASA when that...
a lot is happening.
Exactly, when that interview process starts in April. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that was Minister of Public Utilities, Mr. Marvin Gonzalez, just giving us an update on WASA and, of course, TNTech as we talk about the ongoing consultations that's taking place at the RIC. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.
Bacchanal and water.